We are back tonight, Jawn at 7 o'clock EST. We will be discussing the first thing that pops into our minds, so be there for the start, because once we cut the horses loose, we have no clue what is going to happen. I'm having chicken noodle soup before the show, so my stomach won't be grumbling and making all that noise that messes with the microphones taped to my ribs, trying to catch the other hosts saying things they shouldn't, so I can use that for our blooper reels to be released in the mid-2025. Pre-orders available by writing to your local television station and asking to reserve a copy. See you at 7. Hope you can stay and visit a bit. Jawn.
Jawn. Now we gotta do what we're doing,
please. Three little frogs sitting on a log. One of them fell in. One frog said to the other frog, well, you better go get her. Two little frogs sitting on a log. One of them fell in. Last little frog, he sat and thought, good thing they can swim. Jawn. 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 Three little frogs sitting on a log. One burst into a grin. One frog said to the other frog, wonder what's got into him. Two little frogs sitting on a log. One laughed until he was red. Last little frog, he sat and thought, must have been something I said. Jawn. 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 There we go. All right. So we're doing things a bit different tonight, folks. Welcome to the show. It's going to be some growing pains, but it's all for the good of the show. We have a whole new way of doing things, as you can probably see with your own eyes. And a lot of last-minute little technical hurdles we're jumping, hoops we're jumping through, hurdles we're leaping over, but nothing unsurmountable. Welcome to the show. I'm Nathan Moore.
I'm Kyle Hogg.
And I'm Steve Moore.
And you are watching Jawn. We got Lex Park behind the scenes here, the man behind the curtain producing the show.
Go Lex.
He's got a whole new sleeves.
When it all goes down.
He's got 2 new sleeves full of brand new tricks. So we'll see what happens. Now I don't know how it worked before, Lex, but did camera angles get sent to the preview window first, or did they go? Okay, yeah. So that's the same. Sitting in the shades of green, chickadee trills and the air is wet. I pet my dog and he knows what I mean. This is as good as I get. The radio announces explosions one by one. The bees are buzzing in their hive. Dad is laughing up in his room, and I'm alive. And I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built this clever nest upon my porch. A peaceful raindrops, and it's hard to believe in war. Joe's calling up his girlfriend. Nana's baking a pie. I've been reading Thoreau, living up in this tree, not really wondering why. Oh, the sweet beauty of a flower's poverty, the magic starry nights. I named the gray squirrel Pedro, just been letting the bedbugs bite. And I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built this clever nest upon my porch, a peaceful raindrops. And it's hard to believe in war. Line, please. I've been smoking an old corncob pipe. Soon these apples will be ripe. Oh no. Well, I got it. I've been throwing logs onto the fire and preaching to the cricket choir. Smoking an old corncob pipe. Soon these apples will be ripe. That's it. We'll be picking apples and mandolins. We'll be picking our noses, picking our friends, picking ticks off the dogs now and again. Yeah, a lot of picking and grinning. I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built this clever nest upon our porch. Peaceful raindrops, and it's hard to believe in war.
All right.
The arriving song.
That's beautiful.
Welcome, everybody.
That's a beautiful story.
True story.
Takes you back to, I don't know what the year was, but that was the year you came back and lived up in the treehouse.
Summer of your
The
sons.
summer of my sons. And just for the background of that song there, the Phoebe, every summer he built his little nest up in the corner of the crevice in the porch right at the same place. And,
Yeah.
and the boys grew up watching, waiting for that Phoebe to come. And they would raise a family every year, and they'd fly away, and there'd be new Phoebes.
So good.
That was part of our family tradition.
Were they ever gotten by a snake up there? Because I have seen black snakes
I
up
saw
on the Christmas
one going
lights.
up there one time. The big story was that one year when Tim and Joe were trying to get a good look at see if it had eggs or not. So they got up, one of them got on the other one's shoulders. They were little boys, about 7 or 8 years old, and they wanted to see if there was any eggs in it, and they reached up and they hit it, and it fell over, and I came home.
And there were eggs in it?
I don't remember that they broke eggs, but I think they disrupted the nest a little bit, but nothing serious. So everybody survived, including those 2 little boys.
Yeah,
I
imagine they barely got away with
they knew they were in trouble.
I can imagine that. That wouldn't have been a mild scolding, I don't think. That's a complete disruption of nature, and they would have felt the force of nature coming from your.
I had to chase them around a little bit, yeah. But that was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
You would come in off the road from out west, and you were burned out, and you needed a place to just let your
Lick my wounds.
lick your wounds and let them heal a little bit. And you ended up out there. It was a good summer.
That was an amazing summer. Yep, magic time.
Yep.
A lot of good songs came from that time.
Oh,
too.
definitely.
Some of the classic Chicken and Rice and
Rolling Home.
yeah, Rolling Home, Chicken and Rice, all right in there. Summertime Bank. It was a good
album.
record.
Good album came out of that.
Yeah, good album came out of that.
So
Good to see you, Kyle. You're glowing, man. You're looking good.
Oh, thank you.
I guess y'all haven't realized he's now the star of the show.
He's our host, which is great. I've been waiting for someone else to take the mantle from me.
It's mostly gonna be karate now that I'm.
We could do like a Cyrano de Bergerac version of a kung fu movie where you just move your lips. I'll be like, I'll do the voice, and then you just chop stuff up.
What was that? What was that movie that came out like 20 years ago? They just took the old karate movies and they dubbed them.
Oh, they just put new words?
Yeah, they just made up. It was like a comedy.
that's
God,
so
I can't remember
funny.
what that was called. That was hilarious.
That is hilarious. I've been, I haven't been smoking anything at all lately, but I've been doing this nicotine gum, and every day I make it a new game to see how long I can go before I have my first piece of gum.
Wow.
Can you really tell when you take it that it's the effects of the nicotine?
The longer I wait, the more tension there is to release, the more I can feel the actual release that the gum gives them. As part of the reason I do it, it's an addict move. I want the rush to be as significant as possible. So I just let the tension build up. I say that because I think now's maybe a good moment.
Because you're starting to lose your patience with this.
No, I feel great actually. But I am going to use this as a little show and tell. This is it right here. But the thing that I think that I want to observe, I'm killing a couple of birds with one stone.
Now, where do you
right
buy
here.
that? In the cigarette stand?
You have to go to a pharmacy.
Oh, wow.
You can't just get it anywhere. So this, I guess, came from CVS or something. But the funny
But
thing
it's
is,
over the counter.
it's over the counter, but it's behind the counter.
You have to ask the pharmacist.
You have to ask for it.
That's
And-
interesting.
and
Is
you
heroin like that?
Yeah, in some places. And but the funny thing is that, or many funny things, but I don't think they understand what smokers are going through, because this is your nicotine gum, right? And so I've waited, we went to the dump today. I was a little afraid to get in the truck and go somewhere without anything, but I did it. I was like, it's a game. It's all a game. I'm just making a game out of all of it. But the funny thing is that this is very hard to open. It's, I mean, this, which is like, it's so terrible for what this is, because when someone is going for this, they need it. They're a little shaky. They're starting to shake, and it's just like, I have a little list of things that Kether and I have this ongoing joke for years. You had one job, and that's our line for like when you can't get the price tag off something. It's like right on the face of the thing. Like you had one job, just make a price tag that comes off easy because it's stuck right on the thing. Like I shouldn't be sitting here with, and this, you had one job. And holy moly, to make this like a multi-tiered, hard to get your finger on it. If you're shaking at all, this is undoable. So if I wait too long, I mean, I won't even be able to get into it. And what's going to happen then? I don't know. It's not even my fault. All I know is that there's going to be a lawsuit pending.
Yeah, you're going to need two of them by the time you get it.
I need one. It's like I need coffee to make coffee line for my Surly in the Morning song. I need one of these to get to it. All right, we're good though. Okay.
Well, that's like those gummy packs. I can never get those open. I don't think I've ever opened one. I just give it to somebody else. Open this for me.
Or you just take scissors and like ruin the reclosability of the whole thing.
Well, the worst is the people that do that. Must be a club of those people, but the worst ones are those cheap trash bags you get.
Oh man.
That are impossible to open. It's like I think about every third one doesn't have an opening, and you just end up throwing it in the trash.
It's just
But
a plain sheet
trying
of
to
plastic.
peel that apart. Ugh, that's very frustrating.
I had a mini identical moment earlier today at the dump. I was walking Percy, and he took a dump at the dump, which was fun. But then I pulled out one of his little doggy bags. I felt stupid immediately. I'm like, why am I'm at the dump. Like, isn't this cool? But nope. Who knows who's watching and judging. So I'm like, all right. So I pulled out the little doggy bag, and like you said, I couldn't find the opening. And then I had to do this whole thing where, do I lick my fingers or not? Because I knew I could do it if I just licked my fingers. But it's to pick up poo. Right. I'm at the dump. I don't necessarily want to be putting anything in my mouth at this moment, but
who knows
I did it.
where those fingers have been?
Exactly. I don't. I certainly don't.
Should I lick my fingers before or after I pick up the poo?
I have pretended to pick up poo before, but I can't remember why I did that. But I have pretended to do it.
Man.
Just in case someone's watching and judging. I go through all the motions like I'm really doing it, but I don't want to carry around poo, so I don't really do it.
One of my nieces, they lived in a neighborhood, and this lady, they all accused her of not picking it up. She said, yeah, I do. So two of the neighbors started filming her. And she would bend down and act like she was doing it, and then just stand up with, like, just close the bag with nothing in it.
I can't even judge too harshly. But people that don't pick up after their dog regularly in the same place, it is a level of evil. Day.
Just wanged her.
You what?
I shot one. I
mean,
they come down in the yard, and then one of them does it. Then about 10 more are going to do it because that's what dogs are into. And I just I plugged her. I mean, just it was like a warning shot.
Right, a warning shot.
Yeah.
It's so weird though. It's like when I was a kid, everybody had dogs. You never saw anybody picking up dog doo.
Nobody ever did.
It was just dog doo everywhere.
And getting it on the bottom of your shoe was something everybody dealt with on a regular basis.
Yeah, but it wasn't hilarious if it was you, but if one of your friends did it, you couldn't stop laughing.
Yep.
Then they'd be gagging, and all your friends are like,
the good old days.
Yeah, we used to play football and everything and all that.
And then you'd see that, you'd warn them, hey, watch out, there's some doo-doo over here. Like you'd run around. But I don't remember people walking their dogs so much back in the day.
That's true, too.
Like dogs
they weren't even on leashes.
Yeah,
they were just loose.
Dogs would just run up down the street.
Running loose. I think we talked about this before, but I'll bring it up again. Bob Dylan has this song called "If Dogs Run Free, Why Not Me?" across the fruity plain or whatever it is. But it's probably the reason I wrote Phoebe's song is because of his "If Dogs Run Free." That song would make no sense to anybody now. No. Like back in the 60s, it was a completely perfect metaphor. Like you're like, yeah, look at these dogs just running free. Why can't I? But now it's like nobody would have any idea what he's trying to say.
No, if you see one running free now, you call the police.
Exactly.
But also, dogs back then were more of a substantial being. Everybody now walks those little tiny little dogs, that just like.
They used to have real dogs.
They just get stuck in stuff.
Yeah, they're just like these little furry things that just run around. They would, have a heart attack. I actually had a friend in New Jersey had 2 pit bulls. They were in a fence, and one of them ran across the yard and barked at a woman walking a little dog. Little dog had a heart attack and died.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, scared it so bad.
Scared it so bad.
Yeah.
Man.
That's
the other side of the coin before we...
How'd the old lady do?
Oh, I know. Well, chain reaction.
No,
Holy moly.
The old ladies sued them or something. They had to put their dogs and take them away to be studied or something.
Oh.
They're like...
To be studied?
Well, like
Autopsy?
To see if it was like... No, they took the live dog to see if it was... And they're like, it was in the fence. It didn't... I mean, that's what it's supposed to do, run around in its own fenced yard.
I wonder, like you were saying... that all the dogs now are small and stuff, but I wonder if there's a little bit some more like bred to be more mean dogs now too than when we were kids. Were there pit bulls always?
Yeah, somewhere.
I don't remember them.
But they had a different role.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They used them in different ways.
I don't even remember any of that.
Well, I don't think they allowed them to be pets very often.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see them in the pet stores,
Right.
but they were functional in different ways as watchdogs and attack dogs.
I remember the
things like
classic guard dog was the Doberman Pinscher when we were kids, like in
Well-
all the movies and stuff. They were the ones defending the
A
bad
couple of
guys.
steaks. though, out
Right, you
there.
throw steaks.
I think pit bulls are just cheaper and they perform the same function that
Oh,
a
sorry.
lot of people use the Dobermans for.
Mm-hmm.
They're scary dogs.
Mm-hmm. I
Once
don't even
they-
know if I've ever seen a Doberman Pinscher in real life,
Oh boy,
just in movies and stuff.
pretty animal.
Mm-hmm.
But they've
They
got
look
that.
fast.
They got that killer look in them.
Mm-hmm.
That wolf look.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people will take certain breeds of dogs and modify them though too, which is I
Oh.
don't know how I feel about that, but like Dobermans especially, they'll get their ears clipped
Right.
so they don't flop because they'll flop.
Oh, they would have floppy ears, although not
Yeah.
nearly as scary looking, huh?
Yeah,
Right.
right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, pit bulls too. They'll do that to them.
Oh, I bet our chat's working. Everything happens so fast, folks. that I don't.
Chat
Is my phone
seems
over
to
there?
be working. Don't see phone.
Let's grab this iPad.
Talking about old
We want to
days.
know what you think out there, ladies and gentlemen. If anything you'd like to hear us talk about, apparently Dad has a lesson plan for us. What were you saying, Kyle?
Talking about old days, do people think I should have fought this man? We had to shovel. Stanton got a lot of snow this, whatever day it was,
Legit.
Tuesday. Yeah, like 8 inches of snow. So I woke up and my neighbors are all like really hardworking, nice people. So their sidewalks are all shoveled. So I looked at like, oh God, I guess I got to do it too. So I took a beer out there, stuck it in the snow, was shoveling, and then I picked it up, and I hear, and all the neighbors are talking and hollering stuff, being jovial, and I'm up there by myself, and I hear some guy, you got enough for everybody, and I'm not paying any attention. Then you got enough for everybody, and I can hear him talking, but I don't know if he's talking to me. Then he says it the third time, I'm like, what is this guy talking about? And I'm sitting there drinking a beer, and he's like, you got enough for everybody. And I just said no, and he gave me this gesture that was like so rude. Like I was like, man, back in like 1800s, I had to go like sword fighting or something. I said no, and he just looked at me, and he was like 3 houses down. He was like, gave me this like, go on about yourself. But I had my shovel in my hand, like you come up here and say it to me. You want to start something? And then I was looking at him like, what does that mean? Like, go inside, you'll finish the shoveling. We don't even want to see you out here. Go inside. I was like, all right. Oh.
Boy, you guys have a lot of close calls out there in y'all's neighborhood. You got Dad out there winging people, and you're taking shovels to other neighbors.
It's a dangerous street.
It is. I tell you what,
But it's funny 'cause that's.
you might have to get yourself a Doberman Pinscher over there. So.
But I finally regained my composure, and I kept shoveling. And the mailman, just the nicest guy, came out, and I still write letters and stuff, so I get a lot of letters. He goes, you're the only person I see this. You still get love letters in the mail. And I said, oh, great. Who's it from? And he goes, it's either your ex-wife or your mom. It was from my mom sending me a Valentine's.
Oh.
And I said, oh, nothing better than a love letter from my mom. That's nice.
It's kind of nice.
But I like when he yells out so all the neighbors can hear, you got a love letter again from your mom. Like, ooh.
Eh?
Yeah, you know,
Repeat that, please. That's great.
Wasn't that snow? We were talking about how beautiful it was. It was
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
I didn't really go out into it. Was it fun to? Did you go out?
It was
You
just
were
like,
shoveling
it was light. Like, it was easy to shovel. You could pick up like a whole thing. Just
The
no
snowflakes
tossing.
coming down at one point were the biggest snowflakes I've ever seen in my
It was
life.
so nice.
What makes it? What decides what size a snowflake is? And does
Temperature as much as anything.
does that mean it was on the warm side or something? Or
Yeah, and the cloud formation, and it's just the way it comes, the temperature as it's falling, and how it all formed. But
Now, how far up is it a snowflake? Does it fall from the cloud as a snowflake, or does it form on the way down?
Sometimes
That's a good question.
Yeah, sometimes they get bigger on the way down. They grow as they fall, so the other molecules just absorb it. So you might think, they might be like that day that it was coming down. There wasn't any wind, so they were kind of floating down.
Right.
And then they just didn't have that. They weren't cold enough to form ice pellets, so they were longer crystals, and they just kept growing. So they come out at one size, but by the time they hit the ground, they were bigger.
But he might be onto something that at the very beginning, is it a drop of water that comes out of the cloud that quickly becomes a snowflake, or is it fall out of the cloud as a snowflake from the point of origin?
Yeah, I think again, it's all back to temperature. In other words, sleet is rain that's freezing on the way down. So it's coming out as water, but the air under it is
so
cold,
cold.
so it's freezing on the way down. So it just depends on that cloud and how cold it was. But with this, it was cold enough to be snow probably in the cloud.
Gosh, I don't feel like I've ever even seen a depiction of that. I'd like to see a little moment. It seems like there's a certain danger that if all the water in a cloud freezes at once, the whole cloud could fall down and kill somebody. Isn't that possible? If it just hits a sudden terrible cold front?
Yeah, well, that's just not the way water molecules work in the air.
Thank goodness.
If they were in the ground, that might happen over a period of time, but there's nothing holding them together.
Now, I never thought about this either. How far up is the cloud? Like, how long does it take a raindrop to fall?
I don't know, just a few seconds, a second or two.
Oh, not a second or two. From the cloud all the way to the earth.
Oh, well, now that again.
That was a second. It hit you like, oh, God. Everybody inside.
Well,
Severed my arm. Oh.
Yeah, think about it like this with hail. Hail forms very small pellet, but then it gets bounced around up there. So it starts falling down, and then a billow of air will push it back up, and then another layer of water will form around it. So it keeps growing. As it's coming down, it grows.
That's interesting. It's hard to fathom that because they get pretty daggone big, don't they?
Yeah.
Like the golf ball size hail is not uncommon. That's and
you can get hail on a warm day because it's up in the high. It's a high cloud that's doing it, not a low cloud like a lot of rain is. But it's a high cloud, and so the air under it is warm, and it just keeps popping them back up.
Wow, that is so hard to fathom.
It's like popcorn.
Wow. You believe that?
That's popping around like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I'm trying to figure out how far away clouds are. Because planes go above clouds.
feet?
Yeah, planes go above
Well,
clouds.
you can go stand on my shoulders out there.
I can't see anyone, Nathan. Are you down there? I see your hand come up. I'm over here.
You can get in them if you're flying.
Yeah.
I guess commercially, like big flights, what do they go to, like 30,000 cruising altitude, isn't that?
Can they hear you?
No, because my mic is not charged.
I don't know how high a plane is. Well, doesn't the plane drop urine and all that stuff? Don't they dispatch that?
I don't think they do that up there, do they?
That's just
Maybe over the ocean. Or maybe, on the
what
other
now?
hand, I'm starting to flash like I've heard that before
like
myself,
big,
too.
big chunks of like ice doo-doo will fall and hit it on something.
But they...
Or is that just John Mayer that does that?
Dave Matthews. Better go inside. Dave Matthews flying over. Sorry, Dave Matthews.
Here comes the Dave Matthews
That was
tour
just
bus.
one
Get the kids
unfortunate
inside.
incident that he'll never be.
Did you ever hear about that?
I never heard it.
They were going across a bridge or something, and
Chicago.
they dispensed all the waste, and it was
From
like
their tour bus.
Yeah, like a tour boat was underneath it, and it drenched all the people.
Yeah, there was a boat passing underneath the bridge when they emptied their loo from their tour bus off a bridge into the water, and it hit like a tour little. It was like it wasn't just like a working boat. It was like a tourist boat. And so
Ooh.
Dave Matthews Band forever is synonymous with that idea. Which
I've
is,
never heard that story.
Well, dang it! Look what we did.
The guy that I was gonna, that I asked you about having on the show, that just thank God it didn't work out. But anyway, he was homeless for a long time. He lived in Richmond, and he was downtown when they have the James River, the water tours. And he said one time he looked around, looked both ways, and nobody was coming, so he pulled his pants down, was taking a dump, and all of a sudden he hears all this hooting and hollering. There's a tour thing right there.
Oh my goodness!
And he said he was hanging on to a pole, and he said they were all hooting, and he said he was just taking a dump and waved at him, and the boat just kept going.
And if you look to the right, we have our.
You can see Edgar Allan Poe taking a dump over there. The Poe house is right up the street.
Alexa, if you want to, you can cut on that Shure microphone.
Get your cameras ready.
If you wanted to cut that on. Yeah, it's
Probably
channel
the
2.
most
You just cut on the
memorable thing we
48
saw on
volts.
that whole trip.
I think it's labeled too.
Oh, I'm so scared to unmute that.
Well, the speakers aren't on, so you'll be all right.
Check it, 1, 2.
You'll see the meters. You can tap it. With 48 volts is what you need. It's not the line mic thing. It's not the same move.
That's all right. We'll do it another time.
Okay. Well, yeah, I hear that you have something prepared for us today.
Well, I did. I was thinking I wanted to start a new. I've done this before, where I've given a lesson.
Yeah, you still got your whiteboard here if you ever need it.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll need it today, but yeah. But I just thought we'd just get started on it and see where it goes. I've talked about this before. I don't know about on this show, but I've done this lesson before. But I used to teach lessons right often, but I haven't done it in a long time. But I thought the idea would be you could take this segment out and make a little segment, a whole collection if we got into this, of doing different lessons, so that people that are teaching school or something like that. I was thinking of Christiana, maybe with, she was talking about trying to find lessons. So this was a lesson that maybe they could use. And
I like it.
And I don't know that you want to have me doing the lesson, but you could learn what not to do. That's what I do a lot of. That's my style of teaching. So you want to go for it?
I'd love to go for it.
All right. So y'all are going to be like my students.
Okay.
And if you know it, go ahead. But
So
don't.
we're just gonna talk amongst ourselves.
Hey, sit the fuck down. Whoop, I'm sorry.
Oh, what'd you say?
I didn't say anything. Can you erase that? Yeah.
This is for kids, you said.
The rest of it's for kids. I won't do any more of that. I'm sorry. I've been shut up a lot.
I can edit all of it out in post.
I've been shut in a lot. I haven't been shut up enough.
All right.
Shut up, shut in, shut out.
All right. Me and Nathan are straight A students.
Yeah, we are the best students you ever seen.
You're
College bound.
You're looking to go to college.
Yeah.
And I'll have an influence on that, by the way.
I can ruin you two boys if I want to.
If I write the right recommendation, you'll never see the light of a college.
Cristiano's really taking notes now. I see what you did there. I see what you did. Well played. All right.
Power play. All right, so the subject today, and we might just end it. Y'all can answer all if you know this already. We can just settle it and move. No, I still
You don't want us to pretend like we don't?
Go ahead.
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be safe, because then if you don't know it, they don't know if you don't know it.
Right.
Let's just pretend you don't know it.
Okay.
And the question is simply today, I wanted to talk the difference between mass and weight.
Mass and weight.
Mass and weight. So
I
when
gotcha.
you think of those words, weight and mass, the question is, are they the same? And if they're not the same, well, the first question would be, what are they? But then, are they the same? And if they aren't the same, how are they different? So that's where we're going today, class.
Okay.
Mass and weight.
Mass and weight.
Now,
I'm assuming they're different because the nature of the question.
what do you think? Or do you think mass and weight are different? Or how would you define weight?
I had a workers' comp claim, and I called the the attorneys mass and weight, and they represented me in court. I would say
Call now 1-800.
mass and weight.
Mass and weight and
I
volume
would
and
say
such.
mass is I consider mass like a thickness almost. You're like you're a defensive lineman, not just a big, tall, heavy dude.
But
Mass.
you are giving it some weight.
Yes.
Because I might be thinking of volume, like how like a big piece of styrofoam would weigh like the same as like a little thing of lead, but would have more mass because it's bigger. But that might be volume. I might be confusing volume and mass.
I think you are.
Mm-hmm.
So let's settle that. All right, well, let's just go right back to mass and weight and get to volume a little later.
Okay.
Mass and weight are very directly related because what they are is a measurement of how much matter you have in a system. So the matter is the atoms and the protons and the electrons, all those little things you hear about in chemistry class. If you just think of them as little balls, too small to see for anybody ever to see, even with a microscope, they're the littlest thing. The truth is these are symbols that we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
When I say they're really just little pieces of energy that has a certain quality to it. And part of the quality is it does have mass. So another way of looking at mass is how many protons and neutrons and electrons, how much real stuff is in there, which is what you were alluding to,
Okay.
is the idea of how much stuff, and you too in a way. You know, when you talk about mass, it's how much actual matter is there.
So an atom with more electrons than another atom would have more mass?
It would have more mass, but electrons don't have, they have very little mass,
Almost
but
not.
it would be more, yes.
Mhm.
So mass is like how much space
No,
something takes up?
no, it's not space at all. That's volume. So it's how much, in other words, you can have a compressed matter, like when you take your styrofoam and compress it down to all the, and press it, because the styrofoam's got a lot of air in there. So you push that air out, and now you've got the same mass, but a different volume. So it's the same number of molecules. You didn't pull any of the molecules away. You just pushed them closer together.
Mm-hmm.
So the mass is how many particles you have. So it depends on how heavy the molecules are, or how heavy the atoms are, and how many there are. And that, you add that up and you get the mass of something. Now, you okay with mass?
Wait,
Well-
hold on, no. Because mass, it doesn't have anything to do with the space around the object. Because I know volume is the space within something.
The volume is the amount of space taken up by whatever it is, including both of what you just said.
Like nothing else can go right here because this is here. I can't put anything else right here. Is that because of its mass?
Well, it's because the mass that's in there is structured so it won't let anything else in there. There's plenty of air pockets in there where things could fit, but just because of the structure, other things can't get there. But if everything's just laying loose, you can just throw more on top of them.
Okay.
But it's,
So how would you? I know how I would calculate the weight of this. I would put it on a scale, or I compare it to a known weight. How would I calculate the mass of it?
well, that's where we're going with the difference between mass and weight.
Okay.
So let's define weight as it's the mass, but it's the effect of gravity on the mass. So it's the other variable with weight that mass doesn't have is the pull of gravity on it.
Fascinating.
So if you have a scale that pulls down against the pushes a force down, then you're measuring how much that mass is attracted to the Earth in this case, because we're on the Earth.
Right.
So now you can see why, it's the same mass, but it's going to have a different weight.
Right. A lead ball on the moon has the same mass, but a different
you hear
weight.
That when you're a kid, you hear things weigh 1/6 as much on the moon. Well, that's where I'm going with this lesson. The mass doesn't change.
It stays the same.
You're the same guy. I'm up there, but instead of 240, I weigh 60.
Mm-hmm.
But my mass is still 240. And you're going back to your first question there, you can measure the mass with the weight and then just account for the weight of whatever you're on. So if you're in space, you're weightless because nobody's pulling on you. So you're floating
That's
around.
fascinating. What unit of measurement do people use to describe mass?
Both the same grams in both ways. Because here's the deal. If you have a balance, drug people know all about balances. Balances are measuring mass, not weight. I didn't mean to allude that you guys, you children were
Yeah, we have no idea what you're
doing
talking
drugs, but a lot of people I talk to know scales.
In your neighborhood.
In my neighborhood.
I've heard stories.
It's a rough neighborhood, and a lot of them carry a balance with them. So if you take something that has been a weight that says 50 grams and put it on there, now whatever you put on the other side, it's going to balance, and it will balance at 50 grams, whether you're on the moon or here.
Wait, I'm sorry. I was a little distracted. Will you say that again, please? I didn't.
You got the scale.
Okay.
You put a 50-gram thing, something that's on the label, it says 50 grams.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put something over here, and the scale balances. At that point, you can say that weighs 50 grams, but you can also say it has a mass of 50 grams because you compared it to a standard.
Something that you know.
And something that you knew was 50. So if you're just talking around the shop, ordinarily mass and weight are going to be the same. So as long as you stay on Earth, but if you go to another part of the Earth, or if you go to outer space or to another planet, so if you go to a big planet, you're going to weigh a lot more to where you get stuck to it.
Wait a minute. So the part you said, all right, I understand on Earth, so 50 and 50. But then if you go to the moon,
it's still your standard was still 50. So it's going to be pulled the same amount by the gravity of the moon as your 50 that you put on there. So they would balance, the 50 would balance, as opposed to being pulled down. It's being pulled down less, but it's going to be pulled down the same.
Is there a way of measuring mass without weight?
Well, they're the same thing in a sense, so no. I mean,
so you could describe weight, mass in pounds?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't, in a science, in a lot of the class, the laboratory, they weigh things with balances. And so they can usually interchange mass and weight because it's 50 grams is 50 grams. But if they went to another planet or if they were in outer space, they could still use a balance, but it wouldn't have the same weight.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you have a brick on this one and you put 10 pieces of wood and it equals, that's the same mass? Or is it the same weight?
It would be the same mass, and then you would say it weighs the same thing too. As long as you don't go anywhere, here's a statement. As long as you don't go anywhere, mass and weight are going to be the same for you. So that's why a lot of people don't know the difference between the two. But then it doesn't make sense when you go up in space. People don't really get the idea that you're weightless. Well, you're not massless. You're weightless. And that's because there's a difference between mass and weight.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, if that all makes sense, we can take this a little bit further, or are we tired?
No, I'm just
Well,
getting warmed up.
so like, if you went to the doctor and they say, "What do you weigh?" and you said, "I weigh 200 pounds mass," that would make sense.
Yeah.
Or my mass is 200 pounds.
Brenda in the chat is saying weight is mass times a force, like gravity.
Is that what he said? Yeah.
That works, right? That's
I'm gonna have to think about that for a little bit. But it's a variable of it, but I don't know how it's multiplied. I'd have to check that out, but
yeah, maybe times isn't necessarily right.
yeah, I don't know.
But
I
yeah,
mean, I'm not.
I think the logic is sound.
If he says it's straight, I'll go with him.
Oh, and Christiana's in here. This is the part we've been studying, like with Newton's laws
There you go.
in her class.
Cool. Hi, Christiana.
What are?
Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, okay.
All right, we're going back to Lex talking about the space occupied
The volume.
is the volume. So in a lot of science situations or a lot of actual real life situations, it's not mass or the volume that's most important. It's the combination of the two. And so if you put M and divide it, if you take the mass and divide it by the volume, M over V, divide it. So if you're 10 grams and 2 milliliters, now here's the word. You know what you have now when you have mass and volume? You know what that's called?
No.
Starts with a D.
Density.
Density.
Ah, good job,
So
Lex.
one of your equations you learned in school is D equals M over V.
You should have just pointed at us. You said dense. That's what I would have said. Is that what
He's
it-
not even college bound either. He's out in the smoking section,
He's not
shouting the right answers through the window.
He's not even. He's out there with his scales, getting ready to sell some drugs when we come out of his class.
He knows from experience.
The smoking section does real well in my life.
No, so density is how much
All
mass
right,
is
let's go back
packed
to
in the
D equals
volume.
M over V.
D
Which is
equals
easy
M
to
over
remember
V.
because you can remember
DMV.
you know, division of motor vehicles. That's
Right.
how you always remember. D equals M over V. So the density is where a lot of this comes in as very important because, for instance, if you take any water and you can change it with the temperature, but not enough to make a difference. If you take a milliliter of water, it's going to weigh a gram. So that's the density of water, is 1 gram per 1 milliliter.
Is that how we defined a gram to begin with, as a milliliter of water?
Well, that was always a question when I was, you say, what are the odds that of all the things in the world with measured density, that waters would come out to be 1?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And then I'd look at them and say, no, it's not amazing. It's the way we made it. We made the game work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So we defined a gram as the mass of 1 milliliter of water.
Interesting.
So
Oh, wow.
so we defined it ahead of time, so it worked out that way.
They didn't have milliliters back then.
Oh, that's true, because they could have said a gram was 5 milliliters of water. They could have basically made it anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that would have changed the definition of
That's-
of the whole weight system. So, because most things are compared to water. So right now you know this. We're talking about density. If you, to the density, the mass and the volume of something, if it's greater than 1, that thing's going to sink when you put it in water.
Oh, wow.
And if it's less than 1, it's going to float.
It's density.
Its density is what makes it float or not.
Wow.
It's not the weight, because you could have 20 pounds, but if it was in a boat,
So
it would
how?
still float.
So if you're in outer space, how would you get the mass
with a balance.
with a balance? You'd have to
Yeah.
have a balance
You have to have a balance.
or a calibrated scale of some
Yeah,
sort.
some calibration of a balance, some version of a balance.
And that, so it's and that calibrated scale or the balance, that's all going to be determined by the gravity on Earth.
for around
Like if
here,
we had no gravity, how would we calculate the mass of anything from scratch?
I don't know. That's a good, if nothing weighs anything, I don't know
But
how
they still have mass.
Yeah, oh yeah. You could figure out a way to do it, but you wouldn't be able to use weight. I don't know.
Now, going back to what we were talking about, so is that why it rains and snows? The mass of the water in the cloud becomes bigger than the volume, so the density makes it fall?
Oh yeah.
Man,
Exactly.
taking it right back to where we
Ding,
started
ding,
from.
ding.
Yeah, using it in application is so important. You're going to be a great student. You have tremendous potential if you just stop going out to the damn smoking lounge all the time.
And you calculate the volume by how much water it displaces.
That's one way, or
Wait a minute,
if
what
it's
was
a
that again?
solid, you can
Like
just,
if you put a ball into a vat of water, how much water
Oh,
comes out,
okay, right.
what it displaces
Yeah.
is the volume of
or
the
if it's a measurable quantity, length times width times height. It's
right.
if you just measure how much space it takes up, you just think of volume that way. Then it's how many, so you go back to mass, it's how many molecules are in that volume that makes the density.
So density is mass divided by volume.
Right,
Is that what you said?
yeah.
So like a big beach ball would have very little mass but a big volume.
Right. And so it would float and even float away, So, that whole idea.
But wouldn't mass divided by volume, wouldn't its mass be tiny but its volume be very big, so it would be less than one?
Yes.
So less than one floats. Greater than one doesn't. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got
The
it.
less dense it is, usually it indicates the greater the volume.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just spread out more.
So how does a huge ship float?
Excuse me?
So how does a huge cruise jam ship float?
Because of the volume. See, it's made of metal, but in that hold, a whole lot of that ship is underwater, and that is displacing water because most of that hold underneath is air. And so the density of the boat totally, including all the metal, if you include everything, it's still, because of all the air in the hold of that big ship, it's still,
So
the
less than
density is
one.
less than one.
Wow.
Wow.
And if it's not, it sinks.
Now
Because of the volume.
you won't know this, but I wonder if when a boat is empty and then they load all the passengers on, you think it sinks lower?
Goes
than
down.
normal?
To the point where somebody has to get off. If it goes under a certain level, it's going to sink.
What happens at one, right on the
It just
number?
stays right. It floats it doesn't float on top. It just floats it lays around in the bottom there.
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting thing with ice. Ice is water, but when ice forms, the water molecules, instead of just rolling around each other, now form crystals, and in between the crystals there's a little airspace, and that makes it less dense. So ice is less dense than water, so when you put your ice cube in, it rises to the top. So if after this lecture, you could explain to someone why your ice doesn't sink to the bottom.
But you could make ice that does sink to the bottom?
Well, if you put different things in the ice, if you make your ice with different solids and things that you could lower I bet you could lower it down to where it would. Mm-hmm.
Kether says spread out more changes the weight, right? Isn't that why we say lay down on ice if you think it might crack?
No, it's not the weight. It's weight distribution is a good way to say it. It's spreading the weight out over a greater volume of the surface. So there's not as much pushing down on one area. It's spread out. So your weight, just like if you stand on your tiptoes, all the weight of your body is pushing down on one point. So that's going to be more, there's going to be more force there.
This might be a complete sideline. It's not a, we won't have to follow it, but that reminds me of the bed of nails in Magic. Because everybody's like, oh my God, he's laying on 1,000 nails. Like, it's way more impressive, way less impressive than if he laid down on 1 or 10. Like, because
Exactly.
you get that many nails close together, and it's just like,
Just that absorbs it.
it just absorbs
Yeah.
it.
No, so density doesn't imply weight at all?
Well, weight is one factor.
Because like if somebody said, I'm going to go up on the roof and drop a 40-pound block of ice on you, which is less dense than 40 pounds of water, I would say, well, do the water, but the ice is less dense, right?
The ice is less dense, but it's going to hit you with more force.
Because it's all at once.
Because
There's
it's
no way
like-
for the,
it's
what-
more
if,
like
if the water could hit you all at once,
Like a raindrop from the cloud.
like a giant,
Yeah, all the molecules of the water
40
are just going
pound-
to spread out and not hit you all at once, like you're saying. But yeah, the ice is more like a rock.
they do say like if you fall from a great enough height, landing in the ocean or on a lake would be like hitting concrete,
Right, I've heard that too.
which is fascinating. But at which point you would want to get as small as possible so you could dive in.
Right.
Whereas if you belly flopped, you'd probably die.
Right.
Like, but
So I think I'm through.
that was fun.
There's a lot of ways, you know, if I was really teaching, I'd give a lot of more examples of different things, but density comes up all the time. And I think a lot of people confuse density and mass and weight and volume and don't see that relationship.
Does the word massive have anything to do with mass?
What
Does the word massive, is that tied into?
just means that it's bigger, it has more mass, yeah.
Cousin Eric, Stephen Fisher says, AKA Stephen Fisher, says, ChatGPT says weight equals mass times gravitational acceleration, G, which is G-force, I guess.
Well, and that's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
It's cool.
I agree, Eric.
Oh, wait. He then says, don't forget about Avogadro.
Avogadro.
Avogadro's number,
Yeah, what's that?
that's 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, which is bigger than any number that any of us could ever count to in our 1,000 lifetimes.
What does that have to do with anything?
He wants to go into how many molecules there are. Because if you have 18 grams of water, you always have the same number, it's always going to have the same number of molecules. 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd.
That's what it is?
Yeah, it's Avogadro's number is the number of particles in a mole of something. And a mole is a chemistry unit, which in Eric's response I would not bring up with this class.
Right, yeah. It was,
Because I'm not teaching chemistry, I'm teaching sixth graders, which he probably is too, but he's more advanced than I am. But yeah, that's a cool thing too, to get into the number of particles. To actually know how many molecules of water. There was a time in my life where I really enjoyed knowing that. And then going to parties and telling people.
life of the party.
Yeah, I thought they'd be impressed. A lot of
He'd
them
be
just-
wearing a lampshade, though.
a lot
was
of people
the whole
weren't
thing.
very impressed.
So didn't Iron Butterfly do that song?
Avogadro's number? I don't know.
Avogadro's number, baby. It's going on forever.
That was
Still
nice.
going. At
All
one
right.
point during all that, you said that you implied that there were different gravitational pulls on different places on Earth.
Well, yeah, they're all different based on their mass. If we assume that gravity is a force exerted by particles, the more particles you have, the more gravity you have.
But does that force that force changes in some places on Earth? Like there's a different gravitational force.
It's
like
not. It's not stronger. It's just that if your altitude's different.
the altitude.
if you
I was
have more
wondering if it was like a
mountains-
very.
Yeah, because you're pulling toward the center.
So there's a higher gravitational pull at like the top of Mount Everest, or less.
I've never really known that.
Mhm.
It doesn't. I don't know. If you get far enough away, I think it's less because you're not being pulled as strongly. But if you're on the mountain, maybe it's more because there's more mass under you.
Right.
So I don't really know the answer to that. So when that comes up, I go let them play.
Right. All right. Oh yeah, we're out of time. Oh goodness.
Now this is. I should know this. What causes gravity? What's the spinning of the Earth, or what is it?
It's just the force of matter on matter. So in other words, everything has gravity. I'm pulling you and you're pulling me. So we're kind of balancing out.
So it's the density of the Earth that creates the gravity, or is it
Well,
its motion?
it's the mass of the Earth, which you could put into density.
But it doesn't have anything to do with the motion of it. It's not like a bucket of
No.
water that you spin on a rope and the water stays in the bucket even though it's on its side.
That's a different ball game.
Centrifugal force.
Yeah.
That's not how
That's
gravity works.
That's against gravity.
So if the Earth was not rotating or moving around the sun, if it was just stationary in space, it would still have the same gravitational pull because just the mass.
I would think, yeah. That's my answer, yes. But I don't know.
Sticking to it.
Yeah.
We hit on a lot of things tonight that remind me of this movie called Interstellar.
Oh, that's a good one. Is that
So good.
McConaughey?
Yeah, done by Christopher Nolan. I think you would love this movie, Steve.
What was I don't know.
Interstellar.
But I won't get into what it's about. But some of the things like are depicted that we talked about are depicted in this movie, like gravity on different planets. Like the way they refer to it is like, oh, this is 80% gravity here, you know, and so they were like moving around very easily. And then on another planet, it was like over 100% it was like 160% gravity. So they were like, God, this is killing my vac, you know, like as they're
We're never
walking,
gonna make it.
you know. And the other thing that was really cool that we talked about tonight, having to do with that movie, is something that just escaped my mind. I'll have to come back to it. Interstellar, though, I'll remind you another time.
Nice.
It's on TV right now.
I think it is.
I
on
watched
something.
5 minutes of it last night.
Oh, you did? How about that?
I didn't know what it was.
What's it on?
Some weird movie channel. I get MGM or something.
You get that? You pay for that?
I don't know. It's just my cable thing.
Oh, your cable box.
But I didn't know what it was. I clicked it. It was like survivors of something or another. Planet had blown up or something.
John Jones, welcome to the show. I love it. What are you jabbering about? Well, we just finished a little lesson where we learned about density and mass and weight and volume, and now we're in limbo between.
And if you have any
between
questions,
ideas.
ask us now, because next week chances are we won't remember.
Right. If you have something you'd like to hear us jabber about, fire away. We're sitting ducks here. Welcome to the show. I've never seen that name before.
All right, I'm tired.
Yeah, that was great, Dad. I
Was it
really
all right?
enjoyed that.
It touches on a lot of different things that come up every day in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we just get confused or don't understand them on a scientific level.
I definitely had a couple of eureka moments. The first big aha moment with the light bulb going off was like when you're like the idea that weight has to have gravity acting on it, but your mass would be the same on the moon, but your weight it was a fun
I
little
think,
flash
if you
of
don't
light.
know any of this, then when people say you're weightless, that really doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm still here. How can I be weightless? So now, hopefully, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And if you're overweight, just go to another planet.
Just go to the moon.
Go to the moon.
That's a
Shoot the moon.
favorite weight loss program I've ever heard of. I'd sign me up.
Olympia will take you from 240 to 60 pounds in one trip. And Elon Musk is going to take us all up there.
That'd be a funny movie, but people with like a weight loss thing, they just put you to sleep, they take you to the moon, everybody's walking around like, God,
There you go.
That would be great. Be like an operation. You put them to sleep, take them to the moon, create a little city.
Does anybody know how they simulate weightlessness in those things NASA does where they train? Are those like,
You just have force pulling down at the same rate, or pulling up at the same
what
rate.
would create that? How would they do that?
Well, I think they do it with forced in air. They push you up.
Oh, really? They're just blowing you up?
Well, I think it doesn't feel that way, but I think that's what's happening.
Interesting.
Is that they're pushing. I don't know. I thought, you take
I think maybe some of the footage I'm flashing on is just done in like the space station, or like they actually just go up. They don't.
Well, how about there's little games and everything where people are floating around. I was thinking
Wires,
it was forced air.
Forced air.
Yeah.
Or
And then you have air. You have gravity pulling down, so they balance each other out.
Now, what would happen if you had like a glass ball and somehow you could take all the air out of it? Would it just crumble and crack?
That just depends on the strength of the thing. If a crystal is strong enough, but I'm sure some glasses would break and others wouldn't. But most light bulbs are inside are mostly don't have anything in there.
Wow.
yeah, because it's a little bit of a fire that's going on in there. If there was oxygen, it would just.
It's more of a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
They got argon. They get different.
Gosh, so light bulbs been around a long time. How'd they figure that out?
Well, they have different types of light bulbs too. Back in the day, they had more that were just lit, more flame type things. But
Then they had a bright idea.
Uh-huh.
yeah, electricity. I guess.
I just remembered a question I had. Why is it just by chance, or is there a logic behind? On your car stereo, the knob that makes it louder is called volume.
Wow.
Are they?
It's just two different definitions of volume.
It's just
One is auditory.
sort of
and
unrelated.
I don't.
But maybe the origin of the word means like.
I don't know how they're related, but they're different things.
So it's not actually like increasing the volume of the audio sound waves or anything like that necessarily.
I don't think so.
Does a sound wave have mass?
It's a form of energy, and I guess you could argue that at some point energy, at some point Einstein's going to say something snippy like E equals mc squared.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say it's energy, then it does have some mass.
Oh, energy is mass times the speed of light squared.
Yeah. So
Mass.
a little bit of matter has a lot of energy. That's what nuclear energy is all about, which is another lesson, child.
Oh man, I can't wait for that one. That stuff blows my mind. Man.
Well, the other thought I had about this movie was when they travel through a wormhole and get to another part of the universe, and this is skimming the surface of this, but just throwing it out there to see if it's interesting at all. But the time difference in relativity was an hour spent on where they were was like 6 years or something on Earth, 7 years on Earth. And so they were,
Right, it's a big deliberation. It's like, if we do this thing we have to do, we're not going to get home for like 30 years later or something, right?
That's just wild to think about. But time and relative to
Sure is.
Is all that
where you are.
Is all that stuff true?
Now, listen, I gave a lesson on mass and
Can
volume.
you go through a wormhole
and
and
then you're throwing out wormholes.
can you fold
and time.
space and time?
This is just a chew on for maybe another time, but
I think that's another.
Because they always, they always say it's like this is space and time or something. You can go from here to here, and that will take you 1,000 years, but if you could fold space and time, you could get there immediately. That's like the future of space travel, is trying to figure out how to fold. Am I right about that?
So like
That's what they said.
so like the Star Trek thing, they just broke all your mass and all your volume down, so you could move it really quickly and put you somewhere else. Is that basically what that was?
Teleportation.
Somebody
Yeah.
just did that. It was in the news.
Someone teleported like a molecule, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they did?
Quantum physics or something. Some team of scientists just actually teleported a molecule. I didn't read the entire.
Yeah, I remember reading
How could they
about
tell
that.
you? How could they tell they teleported one molecule?
I know, right?
Yeah.
We did it! Just believe us.
Trust
we did
me.
It.
Trust me on that.
You didn't see it?
Come on. Look at
It
it.
was a big old molecule.
Call Japan and ask them if it's there. Did they really do that? Yep, they're
It's right here. Yeah. Testify.
All right. Well, I'm ready to move on.
All right.
Something
I don't know if we have anything else.
less academic.
I think-
Well,
Cristiano says, thank you. I learned a different way to explain it. Mission accomplished.
great.
That's wonderful.
oh, that's fun.
Talking about drugs on a scale. Something the kids will
That'll
understand.
come in handy.
Well, I always loved. I think after understanding this, balances are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't usually see them too often, except in chemistry labs, and I always had one. But
Yep.
they're really quite a tool because you're measuring mass.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does meat have different masses? Like if you go order a pound or 5 pounds of hamburger, would that be different from 5 pounds of?
Nope. I mean, it could be more dense and all that, but it would have the same mass. Yeah, it's still.
But so like 5 pounds of roast beef could be like that big, and hamburger could be that big.
Well, it depends on the volume of
The density.
the density of the stuff. Exactly.
Yep.
That's density
starting to get it.
is the one that we use for many more things than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Because it incorporates the volume.
And I like that idea of the floating thing
Mm-hmm.
because it's real easy.
That is neat.
It really is easy to measure the density of water. So then, if you know the weight and that you mentioned something that's very good. If you have an irregularly shaped object, to learn its volume, you do it by water displacement,
Mm-hmm.
which you understood. So you take something that has, you put 50 milliliters of water in a graduated cylinder and drop a marble in, and it goes up 3 milliliters. You know the volume of the marble is 3 milliliters. Then you take the marble and you weigh it on a balance, and it weighs 27 grams. Then you know the density is 9 grams.
Because the volume is really purely the outer limits of the thing. It might be full of air.
Exactly.
But
It might be. That's what I say. Your volume tells you how big the box is, but it doesn't tell you what's inside the box.
Mm-hmm.
The box could be empty. At that point, the density is very small.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was full of uranium, the density would be amazing.
Now, how'd you get that 3? Take it out 27.9. Where did that come from?
It's density M over V. So it's 27 was the mass and 3 was the volume. So it's 27 divided by 3, and I made those numbers up because
Oh wow.
I could
Okay.
divide those and get 9.
Okay, that's good.
But I think the cool thing is you do density on something and you look at it and say it's 1.2, then you can look to somebody and say, okay, if you put that in water, it's going to sink. And it will.
That is very
That's
cool.
pretty cool. Without even touching it or just measuring a couple things, you could tell whether it's going to sink or not.
And if you knew the density of another liquid, then you could do the same calculations
Well, that's
as long
where
as, like, mercury is like a liquid, but it,
And it sinks. But yeah, you can get these different layers based on the density.
and you could calculate what would sink or float in that new liquid
Now,
using the same
See,
equations.
alcohol doesn't work that way, but oil does. So you pour oil on water, it's lighter than water, so it forms a row at the top. That's because the oil is very organic and the water's polar and they don't mix. But alcohol has a polar quality to it with the OH. So the alcohol will mix with the water, and that's why you get them mixed together. But if something's more dense, it's going to sink. It's less dense, but if it's the same thing, they all just mix together.
It mixes, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I saw a video of somebody making a mixed drink, and the ingredients that they were using had different densities to them and different colorings to them as well. And so
Right.
they set up this drink,
Yep.
you know, and you could see it like stripes.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
And then if they mix it up, will it separate again?
Sometimes and sometimes not. Just depends. They might take a long time, but eventually it
Eventually
probably
it would.
would. But probably you would drink it first.
Right.
Knowing way
No,
people-
They're mixed.
I've heard this saying a lot, but I never understood it. So polar opposites, does that have to do with the? I always thought it was North and South Pole, but are you saying it's they're?
No, that you're right. You're back to magnetism there, where two poles repel. That's a whole different ball game. That's another lesson.
But polar opposites would attract. So it's almost a misnomer to say polar opposites. So like if we were polar opposites, we'd stick together like,
That's true.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's a little bit of a misspeak that we've been.
it's a misunderstanding.
Because if we were polar same or polar, what's the opposite of
in
opposites?
romance,
Similar.
in romance, polar opposites quite often are attracted to each other.
That's true.
Good grief.
That's why pretty women are attracted to me because I'm so ugly.
We got Squanjo. Hey, Joe and Elliot in the house.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Elliot.
Boy, I love playing music with you the other night, Elliot. Elliot was my nephew was really conducting down here. We were all making music, and Phoebe was playing marimba. We were all playing whatever Elliot told us we had to play next, and that was so fun. He was like, "All right, Kethra, I need you on the piano, and here, Phoebe, and all right, now we're gonna sing about the Tyrannosaurus Rex," and then we'd all start playing, and he'd make up some words.
Now, just to clarify there, how old is Elliot?
I don't even know how old is
Well, I
Elliot.
reckon he's 3 or so.
He's 3. Hey, Abe. Yeah,
I'm guessing. And then Phoebe Jo's like 1.5, so she's playing the marimba.
it was. I mean, they were both sort of naturals. You should have heard them on the drums. The cool thing was when they left them, they put us on to this Netflix show. It's a kids show called like Teaching Bots or something. And I was very impressed by this show. The quality of it, the animation was fun. It was just really fun to watch. But it just so happened that the first episode of the latest season was perfect because it was all about music. And there was this little bot that was teaching about rhythm, and he was like, short, short, long, that's rhythm. And Elliot and I both got on that, and he completely understood it. So we were just marching around the house for a little while going, short, short, long, that's rhythm. And Elliot got it, and I got it, and then we just marched down here into the music lab with that. And then he got on the drums, and I'll be daggone if he wasn't.
Wow.
And it was like, and next thing you know, Phoebe saw that and grabbed a couple of sticks and was on the marimba, and they looked like they'd had lessons or something. They took right to it like a duck to water.
Isn't that great?
And next thing you know, we were making legit music. We weren't even just going through the motions. We were playing. It was
a
really
wonderful
cool.
story.
Yeah.
I love that image. That's a great image.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Now, just to clarify for those at home, we're talking about him and Kethra taking care of his brother's children while they went to a dancing class.
Elliot and Phoebe.
Elliot
Just
and
to
Phoebe.
bring us full circle
Yeah,
there.
and they are just, in other words, my grandchildren.
Yeah, there wasn't a knock on wood. There was not a single moment of crying the whole
That's amazing.
time.
That's great.
It was
That's wonderful.
Great kids.
That's
Except
good.
when they
That's
left,
good
then
for
you
everybody.
cry.
Yeah, exactly. Come back. It was really sweet.
That's wonderful. Good story.
I don't think I'd ever seen a kid stand up for the first time before. And at work, some of the ladies bring their kids or grandkids, and we were out in the hallway. And I was talking to my friend, and her little grandbaby was crawling around. And I'm just looking at it like, yeah, whatever, it's a kid. And all of a sudden, it just stood up, and I was like, what in the world? And then she looked. I was like, does he stand up before? She's like, no, not usually.
Oh, wow.
And I went back to my desk. I was like, man, I just saw a kid stand up for the first time. I was like, I'd witnessed something, you know. It's like, whoa, my God, how exciting.
That is exciting. Aw.
They took me by surprise. Like, good grief, he just stood up like he knew what he was doing.
Well, we only got a few minutes left here, so maybe we'll kill a few minutes by pulling one of these random cards we got for Christmas.
All right.
So there's a little Jabber John card set. I can't remember how these are supposed to work, but I feel like they're supposed to be conversation starters.
Okay.
So here's what we got. What would you do if you were eating at a restaurant and children at the table next to yours were being disruptive?
Stop, stop, stop! Stop, stop, stop. That's rhythm. Stop, stop, stop. No, we used to, that was my curse of life. We would always go, anywhere we would go, like the nicest restaurant, they would seat the kids beside me. My wife would just bust out laughing, like, God, you just attract
Like
them.
it just happened.
I would just put up with it. What can you do?
Mm-hmm.
It's not I would just put up with it. I'd go out in the car and cuss them out, but I wouldn't say anything to them there.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely be observing, and if it seemed like there was an in for like a magic trick or something to change the mood, like sometimes you can tell they're just too far gone.
Right.
Like there's nothing you could do. But every now and again, it's like, maybe I can help.
So you'd interact with them?
I would if I thought I saw that potential.
Wow, you're a nice guy.
I feel like I've done that before.
What would you do?
I'm not sure.
Call the police?
I think I would probably just put up with it as long as. What did you just say?
Call the police?
No, I'd take care of it myself.
Just like that dog that was in his yard.
Just wing them.
I would just wing them. No, I think I would try to not pay any attention to it. Try to ignore it.
Try to ignore it.
And if it got too bad, then
That wasn't a good one.
I'd probably just stand up and walk over and look at the leader of the pack, whether it be a father or a mother, and just look at him and
Or
say,
the child.
is there anything we can do about this? And then she would know, and she would tell me. But most likely, I just would not do anything.
Mm-hmm. I think
I'm
we're
more
probably all in
I'm
the
more
same.
passive than I let on.
Mm-hmm.
Do another one there.
And
Yeah,
depending
another card,
on-
new card.
Depending
Yeah,
on,
new one.
on what kind of dinner it was, if it was like a date or something like that, I might ask to be moved to a different table.
There you go.
Um,
Yeah, I wouldn't. I've been on the other end too many times to be a hypocrite about it. I've disrupted enough of people's other meals with my own children, so you got to be forgiving a little bit.
I'm sure we've been grown versions of those children ourselves a time or two.
Oops. Sometimes the child never leaves. But yeah, and I mean the other thing there is a question of judgment. Like, is the parent doing anything to try to control it? Sometimes you get judgmental about that too. But but mostly I just absorb it. It's part of the game.
Well, what you just said is so true. I was at Target last week, and there was a young couple, and they had 2 kids, and the kids were just going crazy, screaming and stuff. And at first, I was like, man, it wasn't bothering me, but I was just like, man, those kids are going crazy. And then I looked over, and I could tell the father was like ready to have like a nervous breakdown. He's like, come on, you got to stop messing around. You got to, and they just couldn't. He just walked away. He didn't say anything. He just walked away for a little bit. He's like 30 seconds. Came back and said, all right, we're just going to pack up and go home. And I was like, man, when you're just in that situation, I mean, there's nothing you can do. I mean, you know, he didn't just like start rattling the cart. Shut the hell up! You
Right,
know, it's like you have to
which
just
isn't
like,
gonna work.
yeah, you just have to be like.
Good
So-
for him to step away and count to 10.
Yeah, so I did like, oh, let him yell. It's not bothering anybody, but because you do feel for the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that's probably true too. If I turned around and the parents were just, you know, sitting there guzzling down alcohol, I might say something. But if they're, you know,
Yeah, we did it again. That was
Really?
fun.
Is it already over?
Yeah, can you believe it?
That's really weird.
Oh, goodness.
one thing I've noticed, I never must have sat at this angle before. I didn't, and now of course I knew this, but it was like a new way of seeing things. I was looking right down your guitar neck, how straight those strings are.
Mm. Yeah, that's your move when you're shopping for guitars. They always go like that to see how straight the neck is and all that. There's a little rod that goes up the inside of it with a little Allen wrench slot down here, and you can put an Allen wrench in there and tighten it or loosen it to give a little bit of bow or to straighten the neck out.
Wow.
Called a, what's that called?
Truss
Truss rod.
Truss rod, yeah.
Yep.
Hey, here we go. Roll the windows down. We're going for a ride. Woo!
Now, if they'd only crown the king of failure, give a prize for heartache at the fair, give a dime for every time I feared the jailer, if juggling just meant throwing things in the air. Not getting younger, never found that fountain, my bigger dreams now fit in my hand. I've stopped looking for that big rock candy mountain you can't count on, can't walk to Never Never Land, can't fly to heaven, can't fly to heaven. If they only threw parades for self-destruction, sang praise for singing out of tune. If I only got paid for doing nothing, if it all didn't happen so soon, not getting younger, never found that fountain, my bigger dreams now fit in my hand. I've stopped looking for that big rock candy mountain you can't count on, can't walk to Never Never Land, can't fly to heaven, can't fly to heaven. Hey, wait, what if it wasn't either or, but love was fear? It finds you and you try to disappear, scares you into the light so near, just to hold you in its arms forever dear. Not getting younger, never found that fountain, my bigger dreams now fit in my hand. I've stopped looking for that big rock candy mountain you can't count on, can't walk to Never Never Land, can't fly to heaven, can't fly to heaven, can't fly to heaven, can't fly to heaven.
All right. Yeah, dude.
Thank you all so much. We'll see you next
That
time.
was a good one.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Go jump in a tub of water and find out how dense you are.
Well, that was good. I didn't even
Go
tell.
dive in a block of ice and see how dense you are.
Yeah. I didn't even tell about the fact that that I'm dense, so I can't swim. It's all related.
Right, that is all related. I just you got a cup of water and you freeze it. What changes? The density?
No, the volume. The volume is 11 to 10.